After 11 years of waiting, we finally got a sequel to Puss in Boots, and I wasn't expecting it to be this good. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is the new movie from DreamWorks Animation and the most recent installment in the Shrek universe. In case you don't know what this movie is about, the plot essentially is that Puss has died several times. In terms of how many lives he has lost, I think it's...
4?
No, he has lost 8 of his 9 lives, and in a desperate attempt to keep on being the legend that he is, he teams up with Kitty Softpaws and a new dog companion in search of the mythical wishing star that could grant him his lives back. Now, I would be lying if I said I wasn't excited for this movie. I grew up with the Shrek franchise, and Puss in Boots was always my favorite character. I had high expectations for this movie, but I tried to control them just in case it was disappointing. But even with those high expectations, I was still blown away. I feel like what makes this movie good is that it's not scared of taking risks. The movie tackles the theme of death, which can be pretty dark for a kids film, but we have to remember that the Shrek franchise has been going on for 21 years, and the movie knows that. It knows its audience is more than just kids and is not afraid of being dark. Don't let the vibrant colors fool you, because this is probably one of the darkest animated movies I've seen. Puss in Boots is known for being a fearless hero who goes on many adventures and laughs in the face of danger, but when he realizes he is now vulnerable, he's afraid. He fears that his time is coming and he has not yet lived a fulfilling life. Sure, he has gone on many adventures, but he has spent most of the time alone. I always thought Antonio Banderas had done a good job of voicing Puss, but in this movie, his voice humanizes the character. His acting expresses that fearful part of Puss's character that wants to keep on living, and that's to spend time with his friends. Speaking about his friends, in this movie we see the return of Kitty Softpaws, and we see how their relationship between Puss and her has developed since the last time we saw them together. I really thought they were just going to ignore everything that happened in the first movie, but they didn't. They build upon the story from that movie and expand it. I may sound like I'm repeating myself so much, but it's because so many backstory details that help this movie progress are massive spoilers. There are so many reveals, and despite us getting 3 trailers, the movie is completely different than what it was promoted to be. So many scenes in the trailers are drastically changed, and now it's understandable why this movie was delayed. All those changes just make me appreciate the movie story even more and the dedication that DreamWorks put on this project. Another character that helps develop the story is Perro. He's a therapy dog that always sees the good in things. He is supposed to show that despite how bad things get, there can always be good in them. He is a comedic relief of this movie, and from the trailers I thought he was going to be rather annoying, but this dog is hilarious. Seriously, I was not expecting for him to make me laugh so freaking much. He is comedic and always happy, but his backstory, oh my god, I feel so bad for him. I'm not going to say what his story is, obviously, but it's going to make so many people feel bad for him, and it actually makes sympathizing with him easier. While he is a character with a surprisingly better role than expected, most of the villains in this movie are also good. Emphasis on most. We have Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Jack Horner, and the Big Bad Wolf. Jack Horner is annoying and his murders are cliche. That's all I'm going to say about him, because I do not want to waste words on this awful piece of garbage. The Three Bears crime family and Goldilocks are the second best villains of the film. The dynamic between Goldie and the bears is funny and can get you emotional at times if you are a family person. They generally feel like important characters in their own story and not just filler because, oh, we need to sell toys. However, the best villain of them all has to be the Big Bad Wolf. This guy is scary. Seriously, he imposes fear and is probably the toughest villain that our hero, Puss in Boots, has faced. He is the reason that this movie turns out so dark. He is definitely going to scare the little kids who watch this movie. If you weren't able to see the early screening like most people, then you're probably confused as how this guy is the Big Bad Wolf if there was already one in the Shrek movies. And the answer to that is one predictable yet really good twist that just gives the theme of death this movie tackles a more fleshed out meaning. There is so much more that I enjoyed from this movie, but most of it is heavy spoiler territory. So to summarize, I think this movie is a great sequel to Puss in Boots and a good movie of its own. DreamWorks has been doing so good this year with The Bad Guys and now this. If they keep going this way, we may be seeing a new era from DreamWorks. These movies can be the start of that new era, with the ending of this film leaving the possibilities open for the future. I'm going to give Puss in Boots: The Last Wish a 9.3 out of 10. But that's my opinion, so let me know in the comments what you thought about the movie, and if you still haven't watched it, what are you doing? It's literally so good. This is everything I have for you guys today, and I will see you on the next video.